Hello, this is speech number 3. I have my dad, mom, and brother in the room with me. They asked not to be seen on camera, but they are here. When it comes to the debate about the death penalty, what is your initial response or reaction? Is your first initial reaction or response, yeah, I support the death penalty? No, the death penalty is not fair or just. Or maybe it's, I don't know enough about the topic to be able to make a decision. If your answer is any of those or different, that is totally okay. The death penalty can be a touchy subject, and rightfully so. Imagine yourself in the jury stands for a capital murder case, where you and 11 other individuals are charged with deciding innocence or guilt based on the arguments and facts presented in front of you. Some of you in the audience probably could come up with an answer just like that, which some might say is not an easy thing to do. But I am here to explain one-sided argument for those individuals who may not have enough information to be able to make a decision or feel comfortable making a decision if they were to be put in that situation. And today, for the sake of argument, we will be looking at the pro or the for side regarding the death penalty. The death penalty, by definition, is the punishment of execution administered to someone legally convicted of a capital crime. There are so many arguments for the death penalty, so I was only able to pick out a few that I thought would be really important and some that are a common theme. Some of the arguments is the death penalty provides the justice and closure for families and what the victims deserve. Families and the victims endure years and years of detailed accounts of their loved ones' gory murder through the press and social media while the offender sits out a life sentence or endlessly appeals their conviction. Basically, to sum it up, a just execution puts an end to the cycle, and a lot of people agree with that. Another argument is the death penalty prevents additional crime. If the death penalty is not a deterrent or to would-be murderers, at the very least, when carried out, the death penalty prevents convicted murderers of committing that crime again. So instead of it being a general deterrence, it's more of a specific deterrence, which means it's specific to that individual, which still makes it a deterrence. The death penalty is the only moral and just punishment for the worst crime. Charles Stimson of the Heritage Foundation had this to say about the death penalty. Retribution is an expression of society's right to make moral judgment by imposing a punishment on a wrongdoer befitting of the crime he or she has committed. Therefore, the death penalty should be available for the worst of the worst, regardless of race or gender of the victim or perpetrator. A lot of people look at that quote specifically to kind of help in the argument for the death penalty. Another one is the Supreme Court has held that the death penalty to be constitutional. The 5th and 14th Amendments carry expressed approval of the death penalty. Basically, they state a person should not be deprived life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, which both the 5th and 14th Amendment ensure due process. Some arguments that people might make, these are kind of less common, but there's still arguments to be made. A majority of the states have the death penalty on the books. There's 29 states that are for the death penalty as of right now. And the most well-known state for the death penalty is Oklahoma, because they pretty much have every single form of the death penalty except hanging. And the last argument is the legal system constantly evolves is evolving to maximize justice. I forgot the name of the person who said this quote, but every effort is made by the United States to give death row prisoners opportunity to challenge the court's decisions. Modern methods of crime detection, such as DNA testing, also give greater certainty of guilt than what had existed in the past. I think also that definitely is a great point to make, because there are so many stages of the death penalty for death row inmates that have been proven guilty of capital murder, that they have appeals, a specific appeal process for them to go through to be able to challenge the court's decisions, to look upon the actions of the prosecution, to and the jury to determine whether or not there is anything hindering or proving that this person should not be sentenced to death and maybe get a life sentence instead. One that's kind of far out there. Another argument is executions are more effective than imprisonment because humans fear death more than a loss of liberty. Which people can make arguments for and against that. To further kind of go upon this, I would say in most cases, yes, that's true. I definitely think people would not want their freedom taken away from them. So now that you've heard just some of the small amount of arguments regarding the pro or the for side of the death penalty, I wanted to quickly leave you guys with a quote from the Honorable Paul Castle, and it reads, "Nevertheless, when there is a widespread public agreement that the death penalty is just a punishment for certain kinds of murders, as there are in this country today, and when there is a jury acting under constitutional procedures to determine that a defendant has killed another under circumstances for which the legislator has prescribed death as an appropriate penalty, the resulting judgment is no less just because its validity cannot be objectively verified." Thank you very much.